Hey guys, it is I, Kuroninja. You already know what this video is about, so let's get right into it. The episode begins with the Kakurangers hearing a story about a mountain where some kids went missing, so they head on over to investigate. Suddenly, they end up getting lost but find themselves at an inn. As night falls, the Kakurangers find the inn's manager about to kill some chickens, but they stop him before he does that. It turns out that the two people managing the inn are this episode's yokai, the yokai Yamauba and Daidarabochi. What makes these yokai different is that they're Daimao siblings. Even though they're Daimao siblings, Daimao has denied their connection, so the two yokai plan to destroy the Kakurangers to prove themselves to him. Saizo then runs into them while investigating at night. The next day, the Kakurangers leave the inn, but Saizo feels strange. The Kakurangers go to investigate the mountain, with Sasuke and Tsuruhime splitting up from the rest of the team. Suddenly, Saizo attacks Seikai and Jiraiya, and the two of them are captured and replaced with evil clones of themselves. Tsuruhime also gets captured, but Sasuke defeats the evil Kakurangers and realizes that they must have been taken to the inn. Sasuke then finds out that the mountain is actually the yokai Daidarabochi. Back in the inn, the other Kakurangers wake up and find out that they're in the lair of the yokai Yamauba, and the chickens are actually the children who went missing in the mountain. Yamauba is about to finish off the Kakurangers, but then suddenly Sasuke shows up, and it's revealed that Deus Ex Ninja Man is fighting Daidarabochi. The Kakurangers transform and fight off Yamauba, while Ninja Man is fighting Daidarabochi. It looks like Daidarabochi is about to finish off Ninja Man, but then he is saved by Kakure Daishogun and Muteki Shogun. Ninja Man, who hasn't been called a novice in this episode, transforms into Samurai Man, and together, Samurai Man and the three god generals defeat Daidarabochi. As for Yamauba, the Kakurangers almost defeat her, but she vows to get revenge and disappears. Yamauba then teleports into Daimao's skull castle, and Daimao asks if she's feeling more hatred towards the Kakurangers for destroying her brother. Daimao then says that he cut ties with his siblings because he has to be iron-hearted to make a yokai kingdom. Then he gets energy from the yokai cloud that makes the yokai grow, but this time it powers up Yamauba and gives her a new form. At the same time, the Kakurangers see the yokai cloud and realize that since Yamauba is Daimao's sister, the battle against the yokai is nearing the endgame. So it took me a while to watch this episode because that's what usually happens when I get closer to the end of a series. Ninja Sentai Kakuranger is one of my favorite seasons, as you already know by now. As for this episode itself, it's a very simple episode, but it sets us up for the final arc of this series. The only thing I didn't like about this episode was that it seemed to be a Sasuke-focused episode, but he didn't steal the spotlight too much this time, so it didn't affect my enjoyment of the episode. There was a lot of stuff going on in this episode, so it's hard to summarize what happened, but I'll try my best to explain everything. So in this episode, Daimao awakens Hakumenro in his petrified form and he starts destroying the city. The Kakurangers then fight against him, but then Yamauba and the Flowery Kunoichi team show up and reveal that Hakumenro is Tsuruhime's father. This makes everyone hate her for some reason, but everyone's hatred gets absorbed by the cloud that gives yokai energy. Tsuruhime then goes on the run. Meanwhile, the other Kakurangers are contacted by the three god generals, who tell them that Tsuruhime is about to kill her father, and they have to stop her from doing that. Tsuruhime was given an evil sword by Yamauba to do that, and Yamauba tells her that it's the only way to free him from his curse, since Hakumenro is under Daimao's control as a statue. The Kakurangers then chase after her as she heads to the cave where Hakumenro is resting, but Tsuruhime can't bear to do it. Meanwhile, Sasuke, Saizo, Seikai, and Jiraiya end up fighting against Yamauba and the Flowery Kunoichi team. But surprisingly this time, the Flowery Kunoichi team wins this fight, and the episode ends on a cliffhanger. Now I know what a lot of people want me to talk about with this episode, and I'll get there, but first I want to talk about the main theme of Kakuranger. At first I thought that most of the elements of the show, such as the yokai getting their power from hatred and anger, were only introduced in the second half of the show. After all, in episode 1, the leader of the yokai is not Daimao, but another yokai named Nurarihyon. There's also some benevolent yokai yokai that exist, such as Zashiki Warashi. However, in episode 2, I think Sandayu does mention the yokai cloud absorbing people's hatred to give the yokai their power. So maybe the basic ideas were there in the beginning, but the story wasn't fully established until the higher powers started working on the Hidden Scrolls arc. But that's just my theory. Speaking of theories, I know for a fact that someone's gonna use this episode as counter evidence against my theory that Ran, the Purple Ranger, the Flowery Kunoichi team, and the very first Purple Ranger in all of Super Sentai isn't evil. After all, not only does she say something in this episode, but she also defeats Saizo with ease. But here's the thing, the Flowery Kunoichi team's appearances in this episode were both with Yamaoba, Daimao's sister. Yamaoba is close to Daimao and she even got powered up, so it would be unwise for Ran to defect from the Yokai Army Corps at this moment, or else she might end up like Hakumenro. But when the Flowery Kunoichi team was trying to turn everyone against Tsuruhime, Ran's line was delivered with the least energy out of all 5 of them, which could indicate that deep down, she doesn't believe what she's saying. I still think that Ran is not evil. And by the way, Ninja Man did not appear in this episode. This episode continues where episode 51 left off. The Kakurangers still fight back against the Flowery Kunoichi team and Yamaoba even after being knocked out of their transformations. They struggle to make it through, but with the help of Taro and Jiro, Sasuke barely pushes past everyone and reaches the cave, where he stops Tsuruhime in time. But then Yamaoba turns into a giant and awakens Hakumenro, who attacks. Hakumenro is then about to attack Tsuruhime on a cliff, but then Taro and Jiro show up in their human form, surprising Tsuruhime. Hakumenro then hesitates to deliver the finishing blow to Tsuruhime, so he's the one, along with Taro and Jiro, who end up falling down the cliff. Anyway, a bunch of stuff happens after this. The Kakurangers summon Kakure Daishogun to confront the giant Yamaoba, and as always, they're fighting alongside Muteki Shogun and Ninja Man. But even after using all their attacks, Yamaoba gets her energy from the yokai cloud, and I have a feeling that this episode was rushed from how fast everything was going. And here's where it starts. Daimao gives a monologue about how humanity is bad and stuff like that. Then Yamaoba defeats the Kakurangers and their mechs, but then Sasuke notices some flowers growing out of the ground. The sky then clears up and the Kakurangers get back up. Yamaoba then does the one thing that guarantees she will lose. She calls the Kakurangers novices, even though the season is almost over and the Kakurangers are anything but novices. But it does make Ninja Man so upset that he transforms into Samurai Man. Then the Kakurangers defeat Yamaoba with the help of Super Muteki Shogun and Kakure Daishogun. After the fight, Tsuruhime finds out that Taro and Jiro were fated to die once they reverted back to their human forms. The two of them pass away next to Hakumenro, but this removes his curse and he is reunited with Tsuruhime. But then Daimao, who is now by himself, is ready to take down the Kakurangers and he sends his skull castle to crash right into them. Now I mentioned how I think this episode's production was rushed, and it's because of what happened in the giant battle against Yamaoba. The Kakurangers made the yokai cloud dissipate just by looking at some flowers growing in the ground. I get that it's supposed to be similar to the story of Pandora's box, where after all the bad things were released onto the world, there was still one thing in the box that stood out, and it was hope. It's also somewhat endearing when you think about it. Daimao localized all the hatred of humanity to power up Yamaoba and defeat the Kakurangers, but the hope of 5 people was stronger than all of that. But this season isn't over yet. We still got one more episode, and it's the last one. It's now the final episode, and the Kakurangers survive the impact of the Skull Castle. They transform and get ready to fight Daimao, but before the final showdown can begin, the 3 god generals interrupt and tell the Kakurangers not to strike him down. Daimao then teleports away to hide in the city, and the 3 god generals tell the Kakurangers they can't strike Daimao down because he is the embodiment of hatred, and he will infest everyone's hearts if he gets taken down. Then they tell the Kakurangers to capture him him peacefully and bring him to the Door of Seals, before taking their powers away. The Kakurangers then go to the city and spot Daimao. He then pulls a bunch of pranks on people, such as throwing an old lady off a bridge and destroying a building. This makes the Kakurangers more angry and tempted to beat him up, but then the three god generals appear again. Now here's the thing, I already didn't like the three god generals before watching this episode. They took the Kakurangers' powers away, but I also knew what they were going to do later on in this episode. Muteki Shogun in particular has done a lot to get on my bad side. What happened next almost changed my mind. The three god generals reveal that this whole thing was the Kakurangers' final test, and they passed. The Kakurangers found out that no matter what they do, they were never gonna capture Daimao, because hatred isn't something that can just go away, but it can still be overcome, and the Kakurangers realized that the Door of Seals was inside of them the whole time. This would have been a good reveal if it weren't for the fact that the Door of Seals is a physical location that Sasuke and Saizo went to all the way back in episode 1. Anyway, Daimao summons the Flowery Kunoichi team, but the Kakurangers restrain him, and the three god generals teleport everyone to the site of the Door of Seals. Then they do one of the most unforgivable acts on this show. More unforgivable than anything Daimao has ever done. The three god generals turn the Flowery Kunoichi team back into cats. Daimao refuses to be sealed away so easily, so he turns giant, but then gets cornered by the three god generals and Ninja Man, forcing him to retreat. The Kakurangers then force him into the Door of Seals and seal the door with their Doron changers. And their duty has been complete. The show ends with the Kakurangers leaving the area and meeting back up with Bun and Tsuruhime's dad, who isn't Takumenro anymore, but he was so boring I forgot his real name. Then they leave to go on a road trip with Nekomaru while all the yokai inside the Door of Seals plot their revenge, but they don't really do anything until 30 years later. After many months, I have finished rewatching all the episodes of Ninja Sentai Kakuranger, and I still think it's one of the best Sentai seasons out there. I don't think it's on the same level as a season like King Oger. I think it's better than King Oger. There's still some problems most old Sentai seasons have, but I enjoyed rewatching Kakuranger even in episodes that I had problems with the most. To me, the Kakurangers seem to be a found family, and it seems like the dynamic they were going for was that Tsuruhime would be the leader, but the other Kakurangers would be like her older brothers. The reason why I think that is because her story includes the loss of Taro and Jiro, who accompanied her father and frequently went to the mansion, so she probably saw them as brothers. There's the possibility that the higher powers only thought of Tsuruhime's backstory when they began working on the second act of Kakuranger, but the found family dynamic the team has was clearly one of the things that was planned out from the beginning. As you know, my favorite characters in this season are the Flowery Kunoichi team, especially Ran, the very first Purple Ranger in all of Super Sentai. I didn't like how they were treated as an afterthought near the end of the season. We never found out what happened to them after the three god generals turned them into cats in the final episode. But I know what happened. You see, with Daimao defeated, these cats had nowhere to go and nothing to do for 21 years. But then I showed up to complete 5 ninja trials, and a mysterious deity of the shrine decided that I wouldn't be doing those trials alone. So the deity of the shrine gave back the Flowery Kunoichi team their powers, and starting with their Blue Ranger, Ayame, I met each of the Kunoichi one by one, and we completed the 5 ninja trials. And that's how the story of Kuroninja began. But this video is not about me, it's about Kakuranger. So that is all for this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and remember, I have nothing to do with Kuroninja.